How's it going? My name is Jay, and I will be covering writing your resume. We'll talk about some tips and tricks to help you get prepared for employment opportunity, or if you're applying for a volunteer or an internship. There's a lot of things we can use resume for. We're just going to cover down some of the basic strategies to help improve your resume and how to get it out there, and touch on some ways to kind of best lay out your skill sets for that opportunity. So again, I'm Jay, founder of Acton Education, and I'm a Greater Baltimore business coach, Greater Baltimore Urban League business coach. Um, Writing resumes is definitely a key topic of mine. I like to talk about it because there's so many different things and so many different ways that people write resumes. It's important to be able to convey exactly what you do and how you do it. And resume is just really a synopsis of your experience, right? Maybe 1 to 2 pages on what it is that you bring to the table, your skill sets, your added value, and essentially what your goals are, and listing all that down so a potential employer can see that. The purpose of a resume is to help explain and clarify what skill sets you bring to the table. So if a potential employer is looking at your resume, they want to be able to identify how you communicate, how you work with a team, what have you done in the past that's something that can be reflective to what they need in the current role. So it helps them get a gauge on what you bring to the table. It's really important to be able to specify in a real clear, precise way what it is that you do or what you have done, and what it is that you're interested in doing to an employer. Now, keep in mind, it says down here, most employees spend about 10 to 20 seconds scanning resumes. Sometimes they don't even get to do that. They have applicant tracking systems that essentially reviews your resume for keywords. So that's why it's important to not only list your hard skills, like if you are familiar with Excel, if you're familiar with coding, you also mentioned your soft skills like communication, innovator, creative. So you want to also make sure that you identify those things because those things will be pulled out when the applicant tracking system runs through your resume to look for keywords to make sure that you're a good fit for a particular role in that company. Here's a plain definition of resume, like I said, summarizes your personal skills and experience, education, and other unique factors to help you qualify for the job. It's pretty much your own marketing, right? Your own branding. How do you best talk about yourself and what you have done so that whoever's looking at it can see that? Purpose of the resume specifically is to kind of help you get into these areas, and we kind of cover this, but it's, scholarship applications, interest to school, award applications, part of your portfolio, employment opportunities. All those things matter. If you're trying to find a new opportunity for school and you're looking to apply for scholarships, having listed what you've done at school is important. If you're trying to apply for award, listing that out was important, right? And so having your resume prepared for these different areas is extremely important. Now, I would caution you not to put everything all in one. So if you're applying for different resumes, or if you're applying for different opportunities, you don't want to use the same resume. You kind of want to make sure it's catered towards whatever it is that you're focusing on. So you're not going to use the same resume for a scholarship that you're trying to apply for, an award, or your portfolio, or an employment opportunity. You want to make sure that it's specific to what it is that you're applying for. The things that resume includes, obviously, it depends on what it is that you're applying for, but typically you'll have your intro that focuses on what you bring to bear, the skill sets, your values. Sometimes you can see people put their college information up there. They'll put some of the certification information up there. You'll have your contact information in there, and then obviously your training, your experience, and your skills. When it comes to writing down your resume contact, it's important to list that out. A lot of people put their phone number, their address, and they'll have their email address and a website. When on your website, you mainly want to put your LinkedIn account on there. So you want to put your LinkedIn URL so that people can also look at your LinkedIn profile to see any additional information that's not covered on your resume, because a resume is not meant to be a long, drawn out document unless you're applying for a federal job. for a normal position, having additional information on your LinkedIn helps you provide more of a generalistic purview on what it is that you're looking for. So if I'm focused in coding, right, and I'm applying specifically for this job for coding, or if I'm applying for a job in cybersecurity, that's just one avenue that I'm focusing on. But I do have other skill sets. I can put that on my LinkedIn so that if an employee is interested, they can see all that information there. That way, I'm not trying to overwhelm the employer with all my skill sets all at once. They can get that information, what they need, and then, okay, yeah, this guy's a great candidate, or this woman's a great candidate. Let me look into their LinkedIn to see what else they provide. And then that's the added bonus, added benefit of what you provide. These are the other skill sets, so it'll be helpful and beneficial to you. They said one size fits all. There's no one size fits all. You have to very much target your resume. Your resume has to focus on that type of job. The best thing to do is when you are building your resume, you want to look at 3 different types of jobs in that area of what your focus is. So if you're looking for, let's say, project management, and you're interested in applying for a project management role, take 3 jobs that you see out there that have their requirements, their criteria, some of their keywords, and try to incorporate those specific languages into your resume. Make those bullet points. How can you expand upon that? How can you make it seem, or not seem, but how can you make it relatable to what it is that you've done in the past to that particular job? And by doing so, like you said, there's an applicant tracking system that's ran on your resume. Those keywords will clearly hit because you have them in your resume. So it helps out to kind of understand that you don't have a generalist resume. It's not, I'm gonna send you this and this applies for every single thing that I've done. You want to target, be real specific on your target market and what you're trying to apply for, the opportunity that you're trying to apply for, and focus on that. An effective resume is pretty important to understand, and some aspects of an effective resume is having a clear, organized resume. You want to have everything laid out. You want to make sure that there's no grammatical errors. You want to make sure that your points are well understood and that every single thing that you write in there has its purpose on your resume. If you're writing down what your experience is, you don't just want to write, you know, I worked at a store and these are the things that I did. You kind of want to talk about how that impact is in there, the results from the impact. So you can use the abbreviation AIR is action, impact, results. That way you can kind of understand when you're writing your resume, each of those bullets should be listed out that applies to that, so that when a resume, when your resume is being reviewed, they can understand what values you bring based off of your experience. Make sure that information is accurate, up to date. There's nothing more that shows that if you have old information in there, that you're not paying attention to your resume. Attention to detail is key. Make sure that you can do it on paper, but obviously everything is emailed nowadays. So you want to make sure that you do have a good template. And there's many templates that you can find on Google. You can just do google.com. I mean, you can just search for them and you'll have plenty of resume templates. Microsoft Office has some templates. You just get a template that you like, use their breakdown, and then put your information in there. Focus on your accomplishments by using action verbs. The same thing, that the AIR, action, impact, result. You want to make sure you have that. And then you want to make sure it's brief and easy to read. You don't want to have a long, drawn out resume that confuses the reader on what you bring to the table. When you're writing your resume, here's some specific steps. You want to make sure you target your job market, you choose the correct format, you draft a resume, you get edited and critiqued, so you get other people to review your resume before you submit it to anyone. That way you get a second opinion. They may catch something, you get a set of fresh eyes, they catch something that you didn't see. So it helps out to kind of identify things that can improve your current resume. That way you can get a job opportunity. Also, one other thing you can do is, like, if you're going on to LinkedIn, you can do a resume search and there'll be resumes that people share. You can pull those down and see how other folks have listed their information, their successes, and their experience and skills, and then incorporate that into your resume for the things that you've done. Now, when you're choosing the format, you want to make sure that it's broken down in chronological order. Your work history, the most recent. You don't want to bring up the furthest thing from what you've done going down, because they want to see what exactly have you been doing. And you want to make sure it applies to the role that you're looking for. The other aspect of this is you don't want to talk about your last 15 years. I would focus on anywhere from your last 7 to 10 years of experience, and then lay out exactly the things that you have done. If you hit maybe 2 to 3 bullet points, or 2 bullet points per experience, or 3 bullet points per experience, to make sure you have that action impact results listed there. Prefers may, employees may provide references, and they may prefer certain things in your history. So you just make sure that the job that you're applying for matches your resume that you're building. Best for those who, with a good work history, who have advanced job titles. Sometimes when it comes to writing your resume, there's several different types of resumes. It's different. A resume for a school, like a professor, would be very different from a federal resume than from a normal resume. So depending on what you're applying for, get a good gauge on what is currently required, and then build from there. Functional, emphasize your skills. Make sure you have your education experience listed, and then your career advisor. If you choose this style, make sure that it makes sense, because there's different types. Like I said, the chronological is just really just laid out. It's preferred by most. Functional is just really upfront, but you can incorporate. And then the reason this here is because you can incorporate some of that, but sometimes it's not deemed widely accepted. And then a combination of both helps out, and that's why it's kind of listed out. Objective, define your career goals clearly and concisely. Be brief on the position, as far as briefly describe the position you seek. So here's an example. For instance, obtain an entry-level retail sales position that requires strong customer service skills, right? And then you want to talk about, in the past, what have your skills set been that shows that you have strong customer service skill sets. So you'll talk about communication. You talk about effective communication. You talk about task-oriented, goal-oriented, customer-centered, and focused. So you want to make sure that when you are listing your resume out and you're being objective, you want to kind of have your clearly and concise laid out thought process for what you want your resume to look like, and then include that into there. You can use like stickies, like, hey, okay, I want to talk about these few topics. And then when you put on the stickies, okay, my experience is this, my experience is this, my experience is this how this will help me get an opportunity here. And then use those stickies to kind of list out your topics that you're going to talk about, to be concise. And the reason I say consist on your stickies is because you can't write a lot on a sticky. So you have to be concise when you do so, right? So it's not like you have a paragraph to kind of explain what it is you do and how you do it. So it helps you out. Your experience, like I say, use action verbs, show potential for more responsibility. That's kind of like you're trying to essentially explain in a way what you're doing. You want to show results. Results is key. Always show results, because that's the whole point of this. They want to be able to visualize how the company that you're working for, or trying to work for, or trying to get hired by, you want them to be able to visualize you as an employee and how you can help them with your skill sets and your talents. Your education, obviously you list all your education, your high school graduate. You can list your GPA if it's 3.0 or better. You can list, if you were a special honors, anything that can help you set yourself apart. If you're going to high school, and then what computer classes you might have taken, certifications you might have taken, things that you've taken advantage of. And this is really on a really basic level. This is not going into any too much detail. But when you're listing your certifications, you're listing your degrees, or you're listing your school, you list all that information out with your GPAs. And that's really just reference. Out of that, the information that's going to mean the most are your the schools that you've gone to and the degrees that you kind of studied for, so your background in education. And then the other thing is your certifications are going to matter. So they're going to want to know what skill sets or what certifications you have completed, and what information or skill sets or experience you have in those areas. Here's listing skills, like say you're just not listing duties that you do. You want to be really specific, result oriented, right? You kind of want to talk about your past, and it doesn't really matter if you don't feel like you have a lot of information in this. And here's a good thing about when it comes to resumes, especially if you're trying to fill in a gap for things that you don't know. What you can do is you can volunteer for an organization like the Urban League or any like the YMCA, and you can provide that time there, and you can get that experience from that and use those as bullets to help your resume, right? And so if you know you're interested in working in team environments, you can volunteer your time at an organization where you can get that experience, and then you can use that experience on your resume to show other organizations what you've done, what you bring to the table, and how added value you would be to their organization. Activities and honors. So like if you want to talk about, if you don't really have much to talk to outside of your skill set, you can list all your volunteer opportunities, like I've just mentioned, and then anything that you may be a part of. You know, you have to think about it from their perspective. If you're coming as an entry level person, they want to know what you're doing. If you're coming as a senior level person, obviously, then you want to talk about any opportunities that you're helping give back to the community, things that you enjoy, your passions. And you kind of want to list that out. And like I said, you don't have to add any fluff or anything. It could be really direct, but it has to be concise and to the point. Here's some resume do's. So these are things that, you know, kind of keep in mind when you're writing your resume. You want to keep it one page as best as possible. If you go over that, make sure it's no longer than 2 pages. But like you said, the most times folks don't have a lot of time to review your resume. So you want to make sure that it's concise. 1-inch margins, you want to stay consistent format. Bullets, not paragraphs. You want to make it readable, digestible, right? If you write one big paragraph with a bunch of sentences in there, it may not be taken in the same way as if you can break that up. Avoid italics and underlining. You just draw out different lines you want it to look formatted in a way that can kind of help out. All caps and bold text to make important words stand out, so you can use that, but you don't necessarily need to underline and put anything in italics. For your header, you know, you want to make sure your contact information is readable, not something that pops out. And then some of the easy fonts to read are the following. So you can use any of these fonts to kind of help. You don't want to use anything less than 11 points. And larger fonts can be 10 points, but you like I said, you want to keep everything kind of succinct on your resume. Things not to do on your resume, right? Resume killers. Spelling errors, typos, poor grammar. Make sure you do a word check with spell check when you're writing your resume. Proof by reading backwards. You know, just make sure that you look at every single word on there. And this is just a tool, a technique that you can use to kind of help you identify if there's something wrong with your resume. Poor presentation or poor formatting. This is an example of who you are and what you represent. So if you're not able to do your resume in the best light, then you know that's what the company's going to believe into you. So you have to make sure that you do your due diligence and do care on that. Unprofessional email, make sure it's just your name, right? So your name dot last name at Gmail or what have you. That's the kind of easiest way to do it. If you are using anything else, just make sure it makes sense, right? And unqualified for the job. You don't want to apply for a job that you may not have the experience in. You want to work for those opportunities to kind of build up to that. So if you're trying to get a job, like, how can I get a job if I don't have the experience needed to get that job? Like I said, you can volunteer as an intern, you can volunteer at another company or organization, get the experience you need, and then you can apply yourself and say, I have that type of experience for that opportunity. References, you want to list that on a separate page, you know, ask permission for to give any references. Make sure if you're speaking to your college, your high school, your former employers, you get the people who, believe in you, talk to you. Make sure you sit down and talk to that person and say, I'm interested in this job opportunity. Is one I could list you as a reference to be helpful. You don't just want to put anybody on there. You want to be people that are going to champion you essentially when they talk to a potential employer, if they decide to call and say, hey, this person I work with provides so much added value. There's a lot of things that they do well. We enjoy their time working with us. And so that's the type of relationship you want to be able to build with your references and to have that on there. Recommendation letters is needed if you need that, especially if you're trying to apply for school opportunities. It could definitely help you out. But for the most part, just identify folks that you can list as references that are okay with being references, and let them inform them this is what you're doing, this is what you're trying to apply for. In conclusion, resumes evolve over time. Good resumes get interview opportunities. It says that 48% of folks who put their LinkedIn information on their resume gets a job interview, more so than folks that don't. So make sure you have that on there. Your interview performance secures a job, so you want to make sure that you're prepared for that. There's some tools that can help you with that. Google's just come out with a new tool that's a resume interview and warm up that helps you prepare for an interview. It can kind of help you understand how to navigate that, ask questions. So really great AI tool to help you do that. And then what you put in your career management is what you will get out of it. So make sure that you do your due diligence and do care in focusing on how best to explain what you bring to the table. If you do that well and list it in this document well, this resume well, it will be received well. And so also ask for feedback, right? And so if you apply for a job opportunity and someone reviews your resume, whether you get the job or not, just ask for feedback. Is there anything that I could have done to improve my situation? What's the things that you thought stood out, or what's the things you thought that I can go back and do some more work on? Just get some perspective, take feedback back, positive criticism, and then enforce that and put that back into your resume and then the way that you approach job opportunities. With that being said, that is all I have to share. I look forward to doing another webinar. And if you have any questions, we will continue to do this series to talk about different techniques to help you prepare for your resume. Thank you. Have a great day. And I hope you land that job opportunity.